What's up everybody, Kinetic here, and welcome back to Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls. As you may have noticed from my tweets and also from the latest video, how to get any legendary fast, I've been gearing up my Demon Hunter, and I did a lot of testing with two different builds using the Unhallowed Essence and the Natalya's set. These are really awesome sets, and there are two particular builds that are really making these shine. I want to go ahead and give a quick shout out to Boner Fleximus and the Advanced Natalya's 2.2 guide here on Diablo fans, and the Chakra Mania by Jhow. Right, the Chakra Mania and the Advanced Natalya's guide are really cool. Definitely check out the links to these pages in the description of this video. That's what all of this is based off of. I've made, of course, some minor tweaks, and I'm here to just kind of compare and show off what the difference is, and also give some additional thoughts on what makes these really fun to play. So first of all, let's take a look at the Natalya's set. The two-piece bonus we have here is reduce the cooldown of Rain of Vengeance by 2 seconds when you hit with a hatred generating attack or hatred spending attack. This is a really nice early set bonus to get, and because of that we are going to be using Strafe, which is going to be a rapid fire attack, of course, which is going to bring down the cooldown of Rain of Vengeance very, very quickly. We're talking like within seconds you're going to be casting Rain of Vengeance over and over again. It's really, really nice. The 4-piece is 100% increased damage, and 6-piece bonus after casting Rain of Vengeance, deal 400% increased damage and take 30% reduced damage for 5 seconds. So what makes the Natalya's set and this build so much fun to play? Well, let's take a look at some of the gameplay. Actually, you're pretty much going to be strafing non-stop as far as I can tell with any version of this strafe build. And the really nice thing is that you can kind of insert evasive fire and focus, which is going to help us regenerate the hatred that we're spending without hardly any pause at all while we are strafing. And like I said already, because we are strafing, we're rapid fire attacking, and that is going to help us bring down the cooldown of Rain of Vengeance really, really quickly. So we're seeing Rain of Vengeance hit very, very often. Now, depending on your attack speed, and I seem to have a very high attack speed when it comes to using strafe, you're gonna find that evasive firing and focus is not enough to get you back the hatred that you need to keep strafing. So one of the recommendations, especially what I go with, is the Companion Bat rune, and this is going to give us instantly 50 hatred back into our pool, and the Preparation with Punishment rune, 75 hatred back right there. I can't stress enough how it's so important to make sure that you keep strafing as long and as much as you possibly can, because there are really multiple benefits to this, which is why I take those two skills and those two runes to make sure I'm strafing as much as I can. For example, one of the legendary gems you want to put in this build is the Tagut. Gain a percentage increased damage for 3 seconds after spending a primary resource, and this stacks up to 20 plus times. So as we are strafing, and as much as we can strafe, we pretty much have max stacks of Tagut going all the time. That's just one of the benefits. But of course, once again, with the Natalya set, while we are hitting with our strafe, we're of course reducing our cooldown from Rain of Vengeance. So in other words, the more that we're strafing, the more that we are Rain of Vengeancing, and that is where the bulk of our damage is going to come from, especially when we're trying to bring down elites. The moment that you run out of hatred to spend for strafe and you're just pew-pewing with evasive fire, that's when you are really struggling with this build, it feels like. So all the more reason to make sure that we have as much hatred regeneration as we possibly can through those skills and runes. One of the most powerful legendary gems kind of has a difficult time making its way into this build, unless of course you bring, for example, Sentry with Polar Station to create a slow effect. Then it's kind of difficult to get Bane of the Trap to proc, I think, because of a lack of really control impairing effects that this build seems to bring with it. But I've found, and I've seen also, some interesting ways that you can kind of get some control impairing effects into the build to be able to make good use of Bane of the Trapped. One of the ways that I was kind of brought to light was by equipping Cormac, our Templar, with, for example, the Intimidate skill, a Thunder Fury, for example, for a weapon, Bull Kathos ring. You're creating ways in which your follower can force the enemy under a control impairing effect, and then your gem will actually respond to that thing. But I didn't want to just leave it up to Cormac to be the one to proc my Bane of the Trapped. And I also thought I kind of want a little bit of a survivability trick, so what I did was I brought in Shadow Power with the Nightbane rune. Every once in a while, things are going to get nasty out there, right? So Shadow Power is going to give us a really nice life regen per hit, and because we're strafing, we're doing a lot of hitting, right? Which means we're should get a lot of life back once we activate this skill. With the Nightbane rune, you're not always going to be as far away as you'd like from enemies, especially when facing off against, for example, assassins and anarchs. So if they happen to get a really aggressive, whatever the enemy is, get in your face and hit you, hit Shadow Power, and with Nightbane, you're going to slow their movement by 80%, everybody within 30 yards for 5 seconds, and then all you gotta do is just strafe away and pew pew, and the rest is going to take care of itself. This is, I think, a really nice way of taking advantage of a lot of little different tricks that this build has, and also making additional use out of Bane of the Trapped. Going back to our equipment, I want to go and talk about, of course, the Focus and Restraint. Very important rings to have for this build. Because we're evasive firing, because we're strafing, we're pretty much going to have these also constantly up, along with our Tegut legendary proccing at the same time. And the Zay's Stone is also one of the other legendary gems in here. Damage you deal is increased based on the distance that you are away from enemies. So because of the skill that I have and the gem that I have in the ring, whether enemies are far away or whether they're up close, you should have some kind of multiplication going on here for your damage. As far as belts go, if you have a Witching Hour, obviously that would make for a really nice build, but Crashing Rain can also be a really nice addition to this build. Rain of Vengeance also summons a Crashing Beast that deals some 3,000 to 4,000 weapon damage in a single hit, which is really, really nice. For the wrists, it's kind of interesting. If you happen to have strong arm bracers, I would definitely recommend that, because enemies hit by knockbacks suffer some 30%, for example, more damage for 5 seconds when they land. And this is going to be great because we are using the Stampede rune for Rain of Vengeance. Summon a wave of 10 Shadow Beasts that tear across the ground, knocking back enemies and dealing 4,600 total weapon damage as fire over 3 seconds. So Rain of Vengeance with Stampede and the Strong Arm Bracers were just made for each other right here. But if you got Reaper's Wraps, then that's totally fine. That's going to be a great way that you can keep hatred in your pool to keep on strafing. For amulets, obviously Hellfire Amulet would be the best thing. If not that, then for example, Ouroboros, whatever, make sure you got a socket set where you can put a third gem in this slot. The shoulders is an interesting kind of section here, because we don't actually have Natalya's shoulders at all in this set. So you can pretty much put whatever you want in here. You could put, for example, the Skeleton King's shoulders, which, in case you take fatal damage, you might not die because of that. It's interesting because the Profane Pauldrons were actually recommended as one of the items you could put for this build. I didn't even have these shoulders until I started testing this build, and then I open up a treasure chest and there's Profane Pauldrons. But why these shoulders? Well, the increased range with health pickups by 6 yards may not seem like it's all that big of a deal, but it's actually quite significant. And because of the passive that I'm taking, Blood Vengeance, your maximum hatred is increased by 25, of course for strafe. In addition, you gain 30 hatred and 3 discipline when you are healed by health globes. So we're trying to get the best chance we can, which isn't that hard thanks to the mobility of strafe, but we want to be able to pick up health globes as quickly as we possibly can because of the Blood Vengeance and and thanks to the shoulders. Yeah, we're going to be staying healthy, and we could certainly see a lot better cap as far as our hatred is generating. We might as well finish up with the look at the skills here. Awareness for that safety net if taking fatal damage. Ambush for additional damage against enemies that are pretty much full health, and steady aim. As long as there are no enemies within 10 yards, all damage is increased by 20%. So once again, like I said, you know, whether you're far away or up close, you should see a really nice increase in your damage. But obviously, with Demon Hunter just as a whole in this class, you never really want to be close up to enemies if you can help it. You want to be kind of hanging out in the back, strafing maybe back and forth or whatever, and getting that increase in damage for distance apart. Let's take a look at a little more action for the Natalya's strafe build. Alright, let's take a look at the Unhallowed Essence build. This is a build that took me a little bit of time to get used to, but certainly is less likely to give me cramps in my hands as the strafe build does. First of all, we'll take a look here at the gear, the Unhallowed Essence gear. The 2-piece bonus, your generators also generate 1 discipline. 4-piece gain 20% damage reduction and deal 20% increased damage for 4 seconds if no enemy is within 10 yards of you. That's what this is right here, this buff that we're seeing, increased damage and reduced damage taken right there. This pretty much stays up all the time, almost, it seems like. And actually, it doesn't go away instantly. It has, as you can see there, 4 seconds left, so you have time, even if enemies happen to get close to you, to get away and to keep this buff going. The 6-piece bonus, your generators and multi-shot deal 15% increased damage for every point of discipline you have. This is something that, for whatever reason, when I first looked at it, just like my brain just kind of went past it and didn't quite get it. But once you understand that for every point of discipline increases your multi-shot damage by 15%, then it just makes total sense why you would want to stack as much discipline into your pool as you possibly can, which is why, for example, one of our skills here, Preparation Invigoration Rune, is going to permanently give us a maximum discipline by 15, and wherever you can in your gear, you're going to want to, for example, have a secondary that gives you maximum discipline here. Really nice. The more you have, the more your multi-shot is going to be dealing really nice damage. That's kind of what this build is about. It's a lot less mobility and kind of chaos as the strafe build, but what you have is just brute force, just destroying enemies. And that's not even the highlight of it. Actually, the highlight of it comes from the offhand, and the chakrams that we are using. So going back to our gear, the generators deal 15% increased damage for every point of discipline we have, right? In a really twisted but awesome way, we can actually make chakrams a generator, and of course, being a generator, that means it can also benefit from focus and restraint thanks to our Spines of Seething Hatred. Chakram now generates 4 hatred, so through focus and restraint and through the Unhallowed Essence 6-piece, what you'll see is that chakram costs little to nothing, but hits like a truck while you're running around shooting it at enemies. And then should the crowd get even bigger, then just get out your multi-shot and blast them to pieces. Going back to our gear here, the Witching Hour is going to be a really nice belt to put in this slot. Reaper's Wraps, Steady Strikers, the Lacuni Bracers will make for really good wrists, but pretty much I think that Reaper's Wraps are going to make for one of, if not the best, to have in this slot. For your amulet, as always, it's just whatever I think pretty much is your best amulet. Make sure that you have 3 slots in your rings for gems. We want Tegut, we want Bane of the Trapped, and we want the Zay's Stone of Vengeance. For your main hand, it's really nice that you can go ahead and, as long as you have the plans of course, which you should, go ahead and craft yourself a really nice Arcane Barb, or Calamity if you have it. That's going to make for a really nice weapon, but we don't have any major restrictions in this slot, which is nice. Really the only thing you really need outside of, well, the Unhallowed and Focus and Restraint is definitely the Spines of Seething Hatred. Without this, then the whole build is just shot to pieces, unfortunately, because we need Chakram to become a generator. Without it being a generator, then what you'll be forced to do is incorporate, for example, Evasive Fire with maybe Focus, but then it gets just really messy as you're trying to Evasive Fire, Chakram, and Multi-Strike. It's really just inefficient and clumsy feeling. Our Paragon points are pretty much exactly, I think they are, yeah, exactly the same as before with the Natalya's set. No differences there. A closer look at the skills, we're going with Chakram with Razor Disc, Companion, Wolf Companion. We don't really need the Bat as we did before with the Strafe build, because we're not really spending all that much hatred thanks to the Chakram. So Wolf Companion for the increased damage for X amount of time is nice. Now, I decided to put in Sentry Polar Station here because I definitely wanted a really just convenient, and it seemed like this build certainly has a lot of wiggle room for going ahead and customizing what skills you want outside of Chakram, outside of multi-shot. You can do a lot of different things here. The Companion, I think, is a given, but Sentry and Marked for Death are the 2 skills that I decided to go ahead and put in here. Like I said, Polar Station is a great way to activate Bane of the Trapped. Marked for Death with Contagion is nice, as you can mark one really easy to kill enemy, and then that just multiplies as it spreads around to the rest of the crowd. Preparation with Invigoration, as mentioned before, is going to give us permanently an increased amount of discipline, which is amazing for our Chakram and our multi-shot. Call of the Week because of Polar Station, Ambush, Awareness, and Steady Aim. That's going to do it for this video on the Unhallowed Essence and Natalya's builds, the Chakramania and the Reign of Vengeance builds for patch 2.2. Both are incredibly fun builds to play. If you want to know what my personal preference is, I have to say that while the Strafe build is tons of fun and it's awesome to see the Demon Hunter like go wild like a barbarian with a whirlwind style of gameplay, it does kind of start to wear out my wrists, even with like special keybinds on my Razor Naga and stuff like that. Like just the holding of Strafe and trying to click the other buttons, just, I don't know, it gets a bit tiring after a while, whereas the Unhallowed Essence is a much more relaxed experience. It almost feels actually kind of like the Sentry Marauders builds, as you're placing out your polar stations and then blasting enemies that are getting slowed in those areas. So it's a little bit more comfortable. I can play it for longer periods of time, but I definitely see myself bouncing back and forth between the two builds, just for maybe the occasional YOLO strafe runs. In solo or group situations, I think from what I've read and what other people are saying, both have their own advantages and disadvantages. So it really comes down to player preference. What do you feel like doing when you're soloing? What do you feel like doing when you're in group? Will really just depend on where you go from there. And with either one of these builds, I think that they have some room where you can kind of customize, you know, what skills you want to bring, especially the Unhallowed Essence build. It has a lot of room for you to pick and choose like what additional skills you want to put in there to suit your play style. Remember to check out the description section for links to the Diablo fans pages where I got inspiration for these builds. And yeah, I would like to hear what your thoughts are. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Click the like button to support these Diablo 3 videos here on the channel, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next episode. Also keep an eye on my Twitch channel, as I'll be live streaming very frequently, especially from now up to going to the DreamHack event. I'm going to DreamHack, in case you didn't know. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to be streaming Diablo 3, making videos out there. It's going to be tons of fun. Thanks for watching this video, guys. My name is Kinetic, and I'll see you next time.